Hey, welcome once again to our Gracie Jiu-Jitsu self-defense course. And today I'm going to talk about sport jiu-jitsu versus self-defense jiu-jitsu. This is a debate that has gone on for quite a long time in the jiu-jitsu community. And I think it's not going away anytime soon. And people think that I am on one side of it. And to an extent I am, but not as much as people think. Okay. Do I teach sport jiu-jitsu? Yeah. Yeah, right? Because it's part of jiu-jitsu, right? It's a beautiful part, right? It's actually even an important part if you want to do self-defense. But first, as the cliche goes, let's define our terms, right? Sometimes people think, this is self-defense, it's a closed box. This is sport jiu-jitsu, it's a closed box. And this box is getting bigger and this box never changes. Right, so this is old 1950s Alio Gracie and this is modern sport jiu-jitsu. The fact is, the boxes are not a hard wall between the two. There are techniques in sort of classic Gracie self-defense sort of mindset that I don't think are that effective. There are techniques in sport jiu-jitsu that I use a lot in self-defense because it's not about the technique, it's about the purpose, right? It's about the goal, right? Again, the goal in sport tournament jiu-jitsu is to beat another jiu-jitsu person, right? Under jiu-jitsu rules, right? And so you develop certain things that you will do, certain things you don't need to do, that you don't even need to learn, right? That's why I've always said I can make a good competition purple belt in 3 years. I can't make one of my purple belts in under 5 years because if I wanted you to compete, I don't have to teach that much. I don't have to teach any self-defense, no striking, probably not that much takedown. I just have you guard pull. We'll build out a little game plan for you with a flow chart and then you just drill that over and over, right? That's easy to do, but you're not really understanding why you're doing anything. Okay, you're just a robot, okay? And you don't have to learn a lot of things. Okay, so again, with the self-defense, I have to worry about so many more things, right? But the concept is still the same, right? I need to either get to positions of safety, right? Or get to positions of control. So for me, jiu-jitsu is an art of control, denying you control or gaining control over you. If I can control you in a way that comes from sport jiu-jitsu and it's effective, and it doesn't open me up to the problems in a real fight, I will absolutely use it, right? It's probably great because it's probably been battle tested, right, if you will. So there's a lot of things, you know, later. You know, I really, again, I roll with so many big guys, especially where I come from, that I use a lot of leg folding, where I pin his legs to the side, okay? It works great for me because I'm not having to, if I have somebody who's really strong, I'm taking their power away, okay? But in a fight situation, I can be here and fold, come right in. Here, Damian Maya uses that exact flow. BJ Penn uses that exact kind of flow all the time, okay? Not saying that MMA is necessarily self-defense, but it works great because you can no longer kick me, right? It's very hard for you to push me off of you, right? So that is a situation that I teach for self-defense very often, right? Versus I've seen some self-defense people and like their defense when mounted is just to hold their collars. Again, a fight you're gonna get punched in the face, right? So it comes down to I don't care about the technique. I care about whether I can use it when punches are being thrown, whether it fits my mindset of I don't want to be on pavement if at all possible, certainly not with any sort of vital parts of my body, right? So I'm going to be less inclined to post on my head with certain techniques. You know, does he have clothing, right? So for instance, sort of classically in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, you didn't see the katagatame choke as much. You know, you see a lot more cross-collar chokes. But I don't know that you're going to have collars strong enough that I can do the cross-collar choke. So I use the katagatame much more. I think it's much more effective for self-defense. So play with it all. And what I meant earlier too was when we're doing sport jiu-jitsu, lay down, talk about this all the time. He's playing like a daily Hiva guard and all this, and he's got my sleeve. Maybe he's got a lasso, lasso over this one here. He's holding this. Is this ever going to happen in a street fight?
I don't think so.
No. So is it useless to learn how to pass that? Absolutely not. Why? Right? I have to develop a tremendous base against anybody who's got a good daily Hiva, spider guard, any of that stuff. You have to develop amazing balance to get past it, especially if they have gis to hold on to, because that's an incredibly destabilizing position. Is the ability to have great balance and not get thrown over a great one for self-defense?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I train these things partially because, the puzzle aspect of it, which I'll talk about in a second, but because it's going to develop attributes, right? Just the same way that if you train with a big person, you put them in a gi. Why? Well, a smaller person can hold them down in a gi, so they learn how to escape properly. Okay, so I will play all this stuff, learn how to deal with deep half guard and all of these things because it increases my ability to balance, to think in the moment about how to open these puzzles, solve these puzzles. And that's the last thing, right? If we just did self-defense every day, do this, do this, do this, in a very boring way, not the way you should train it, you get bored after a while, right? You do the sport BJJ stuff, it's fun, it's exciting, it's interesting because it is a puzzle, okay? Now the self-defense can be a puzzle too, right? You go into headlocks and they switch off to something else. That's a puzzle. We'll cover that mindset another time. But you learn it all, right? The problem I have is I know almost no jiu-jitsu people that I know that really focus on teaching a self-defense style of jiu-jitsu who say, don't do sport. They all teach it. But the reverse is not true. I know a ton of people who only teach sport and go, don't worry about the self-defense, or it doesn't work, or you don't need it, or go do Krav Maga if you want to defend yourself. So it's not really a battle, it's two sides fighting. Right? It's one side saying, do both, and the other side saying, nah, you don't need that one. And the problem is the one that they're saying you don't need is the one that will work, is geared to work out there versus the one that's geared to work in here, okay? So that's my view on this battle between sport jiu-jitsu and self-defense jiu-jitsu. Do it all, make the foundation the stuff that works, jiu-jitsu versus the world, but don't be afraid to go learn the other stuff. And don't think that I'm the person saying, you should never learn that. My first Pan Ams, my second match, I went straight to X-Guard because I'm very good at X-Guard, or I was very good at X-Guard at that time. Absolutely the sport technique.